colonialism and nationalism are intricately intertwined frameworks that shape colonies, nations, and their interrelations. The dialectical connection between colonialism and nationalism is evident, as colonialism gives rise to anti-colonial nationalism, while nationalism poses a threat to ongoing colonial occupation. At the core of post-colonialism's explanatory framework lies colonialism, revealing discursive strategies of domination and subordination, deeply ingrained in colonial culture. The colonialists played a pivotal role in establishing elite classes, thereby perpetuating colonial dominance. However, this also resulted in the subaltern classes, particularly peasants and workers, falling under the sway of both colonial and elitist control. Even in the post-colonial era, remnants of colonial domination persist through discourses rooted in essentialism and Orientalism. The struggle against these enduring power dynamics continues to shape the narratives of post-colonial societies. The role and functioning of nationalism in the decolonization process have been extensively examined, but disagreements persist regarding its impact. An evaluation of the relationship between nationalism and colonial difference reveals a distinction between political and cultural nationalism. Political nationalism aimed to contest the notion of colonial difference in external realms, while cultural nationalism sought to uphold it, albeit in a reformed and reshaped manner, within internal spheres. Benedict Anderson, in his seminal work Imagined Communities, delved into the genesis and global dissemination of nationalism. He argued that understanding the roots of anti-colonial nationalisms involved acknowledging the pivotal role played by native bilingual intelligentsias. These individuals, with exposure to modern Western culture, including models of nationalism, nation-s, and nation-state from the 19th century, played a crucial role. African anti-colonial leaders such as Nyerere and Nkrumah, fluent in the language of their colonial rulers and having lived in Europe or North America, drew on their experiences to shape nationalist consciousness. Denied positions of power by colonial regimes, they emerged as spokespersons for anti-colonial nationalism. However, critics, including Lumumba, challenge Anderson's perspective, contending that it denies agency to the colonized world. Lumumba suggests that accepting this explanation implies that anti-colonial nationalism is itself made possible and shaped by European political and intellectual history, reducing it to a derivative discourse dependent on colonial powers, models, and language. The Subaltern Studies Collective, particularly Chatterjee, seeks to challenge this notion, questioning what is left for nationalisms, if they must choose from modular forms made available by Europe and the Americas. Chatterjee contends that Europe and the Americas not only scripted colonial enlightenment and exploitation, but also anti-colonial resistance and post-colonial misery, suggesting that imaginations remain perpetually colonized. Chatterjee, while critical of Anderson's Eurocentrism, acknowledges that anti-colonial nationalism focused on differences between Western and Asian/African identities, rather than a particular identity or derivation. To comprehend anti-colonial nationalisms, it is essential to scrutinize not only borrowed elements from colonial powers, but also how colonial difference was both challenged and maintained. To comprehend the intricate dynamics between nationalism and colonial difference, it proves beneficial to delineate between nationalism as a political movement, in the outer domain, and as a cultural construct, in the inner domain. while political nationalism strives to challenge the colonial state. Cultural nationalism allows the colonized subject to carve out an autonomous personal space. The latter process, occurring before the commencement of political struggles, serves to fashion a modern project that is nevertheless not Western, as articulated by Chatterjee, marking the genesis of the imagined community. In the realm of anti-colonial nationalism, sovereignty is often asserted over facets such as language, religion, literature, art, education, and popular culture. This cultural assertion, labeled a fundamental feature of anti-colonial nationalisms in Asia and Africa by Chatterjee, showcases the multifaceted nature of the resistance. Intellectuals like Joseph Casely Hayford and J. B. Dankwa in the Gold Coast leveraged rhetoric and discourse as politics by other means, intertwining literary efforts with an ideological project, often synonymous with assertive militancy. Simultaneously, filmmakers in Africa, according to Akudinobi, played a pivotal role in formulating nationalist discourses, incorporating indigenous elements into their works as a form of advocating alternative representational paradigms. Anti-colonial nationalism vehemently emphasized the distinction between the cultures of the colonized and the colonized within the inner domain, aiming to resist the influence of modern disciplinary power structures. Conversely, in the outer domain where nationalism operates as a political movement, the objective is to obliterate the marks of colonial difference. Colonial rule derived power from affirming the alienness of the ruling group, often manifested through racial and linguistic distinctions. Anti-colonial nationalists sought to undermine colonial difference by revealing the inherent incongruity between colonial rule and the modern power regimes constructed by the colonialists. Nelson Mandela in South Africa and Emma Khalid in Algeria strategically leveraged notions of enlightened modern states to assert their rights, exposing the tension between colonial policies and the modern regime of power. This contradictory relationship between nationalism and colonial difference remains pertinent today, underscoring the fundamental similarities between colonial and post-colonial states. The techniques of rule emphasizing political unity and the centrality of culture and gender, wherein women often symbolize the preservation of cultural and spiritual purity, persist in both contexts. Thus, differentiating between political and cultural nationalism allows us to trace a contradictory process that continues to shape contemporary post-colonial realities.